Hi guys, welcome back. Today I have a story time video for you. So I know some of you have had your reservations about moving to Ghana because of hospitals and healthcare and all of that, and I hadn't really had any real experience, to be honest with you, since I've been here. None of us have really particularly got sick or anything like that, so we've never really had to go to hospital except for this one time. About 3 months ago, I would say, my son actually had is it 3 months? No, it's probably a little bit long. Not more than 6 months anyway. About maybe 4 or 5, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so a few months ago, my youngest had an accident in the house. He was actually just running, just playing by himself. He was running in the house and he fell down and he banged his head on something really hard, and he had a big, massive gash open up on his head here. Man. Huh?
Like a third eye.
Kwame said it was like a third eye. It was not like a third eye. Step off my video, please. Anyway, yeah, so he had this cut here. Like, it wasn't just like a little cut where you think, oh, you know, just wash it and then put the plaster on. No, it was actually opened. His forehead actually opened. My heart, if I could tell you guys, like, my heart sunk. If I could have vomited at that time, I would have vomited. Everything would have just out of all directions for me, because I literally did not know what to do. It's like, you know when your children play and you hear them cry, there are different types of cries, but this one, when I heard the cry, because I was actually in the kitchen at the time and I was washing up, when I heard this cry, I just knew it. My whole heart just went doof, right down. I knew it. And then Kwame came running to me, holding him in the kitchen. He came running to me in the kitchen. He was holding Jaden, and all you could see was just blood on his face here like this. The whole thing was just red, and he was crying and he was trying to wipe the blood from his eyes so he could see. It was just dripping. It was dripping everywhere. I did not know what to do, because actually we hadn't really been prepared for something like as serious as this before. So we picked him up. We tried to clean him up a little bit. We picked him up, got in the car, and we just drove to the nearest hospital that we could. Thankfully, there was one that was in East Legon. I think it's actually quite new at the time. It's still pretty new. It was quite new. I don't know how long it's been there for. I didn't know who the owners were. I didn't know anything about this hospital. Literally, I needed someone to look at my son, like, right now. In fact, this happens right at the beginning of COVID, because I remember us having conversations about COVID. And literally, we just put him in there. They rushed us in to the emergency part. They were really, really good. They just asked what happened. And then they sort of cleaned up the cuts, and then they just said to us that, oh, you know, he would need stitches. Baby needs stitches? Like, what is this? This was like crazy. That I've never had such an experience before with any of my children before, and let alone have it in Ghana. So I was really, really worried. And so they just kind of explained the procedures that they were going to do. So they gave him some oral medicine to take. And then we had to literally pin him down, because this guy was screaming his head off. And it was so heartbreaking for me to have to pin my son down, but I knew it was for the best. So myself and Kwame had to hold his head still while the person came with it was actually needle and thread that they used to do it. The needle and thread, and they gave him 3 stitches to his forehead. And it was absolutely horrific. It really was. And I was really, really worried, because I didn't actually know what was going to be left afterwards. They said, oh, be like a small scar. But the way this cut looked, I was like, there's no way that this is going to be a small scar. Honestly, if I could have avoided going to hospital at that time, I would have done anything. Even though when we went to the hospital, I was like, are you sure we can't just clean this up and just like leave it here on its own? They were like, no, he'll be left with a massive gash opened. I was like, okay. So that was just the mother side of me, where I just didn't want him to go through the pain of having the stitches in his head, but he had to have it. So anyway, he had 3 stitches there. He was fine, and then they kind of wrapped him up with, they put, I don't know what that tape is called, where they put it round here. They put a patch on it, they put it round there, and they said that we had to come back in a few days' time to have it redressed. It's interesting. So we hadn't been to this hospital before, like I said, and we had to pay a registration fee, which was 300 cedis to have him registered there first. And then after that, for them to get the stitches was another 100 cedis on top. So in total, we paid 400 cedis to have the procedures done. But thankfully, the hospital was really quiet. It's not like a massive hospital as well, from what I've seen. They handled it really well. They had really good customer service. Is that the right thing that I'm trying to say? Customer service? No, I don't know. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is they handled him really well because he's a child. They weren't, you hear horror stories of people saying, oh, sit down here, stop crying, da 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 da. There was none of that, honestly, there was none of that. They really had the care and attention, and they were even paying me attention because I was like, literally, I'm going to throw up because I don't deal well with blood and cuts and things. I can watch it on TV, but in real life, I don't even deal with wobbly teeth because I hate them so much. If my children have a wobbly tooth, you're like, just don't talk to me until that thing has come out. Like, I'm one of those, I'm very, very squeamish. It is going to chuck it down with rain here. I'm not sure if you can see the lighting on the camera, but it is about to chuck it down. And I'm about to go out, so it's not good. But anyway, yeah. So they were even attending to me. They were like calming my fears as well. They're like, no, he's fine. He might feel this little bit of pain now. We've given him something for the pain, but he'll be all right. Just give him the paracetamol through the night and he'll be all right. You'll see he's a child, he's lucky, his skin will heal really quickly. So they kind of eased me because I think I was probably actually more hysterical than he was himself. So they did really well on that front, definitely. So we just paid for everything and we left the hospital, and I think the hardest part was probably trying to get him to not pull that thing off at night time. So this happened at night time, about 8 o'clock at night. So it wasn't a very nice time. So in the morning he woke up and he realised, he kept saying, Mom, Mom, and looking at himself in the mirror with this thing on his head, and he really wanted to take it off. But thankfully we managed to kind of persuade him for the most part to kind of keep the bandage on. And then a few days later we went and they were going to change the bandage. In fact, they did change the bandage. And I think that was 50 cedis for them to just change it. So the stitches obviously remained intact. And then they just took off the bandage, which was horrible because that thing gets stuck, especially when there's blood there. It was like getting stuck, and I'm like, I'm trying to hold it in because he's my son and I don't want him to see that I'm also scared, because that would just inflate the situation. So I was trying to hold all my emotions back. But anyway, it was pretty painless really, I think, for him, because he didn't cry. He was just more like just staring at them like, what are you guys doing? So they took it off, rebandaged him, and that was it. And then we went back about a week, 10 days later, something like that, we went back and they took the stitches out, and he was so good. I literally, for this one, I couldn't look. I had my back to what they were doing, and Kwame was watching, and he was just sitting up. He was just sitting up like nothing was going on. He was just sitting up, and then they just used a blade to take out the stitches. And so, yeah, it went really well anyway. So he's left with a little mark here. So if you ever see him on camera and you see this little mark that he's got here, that was why. So basically that was what happens. But honestly, if you find a good hospital in Ghana, you're pretty much good to go. For me, I didn't think about, oh, this is 400 cedis, or it wasn't like that. This was like an emergency. Let's just go, let's pay for it, get him what he needs. So the money factor didn't come into it, we just paid what we needed to pay. In fact, it was a really good hospital. I'm not sure who it's owned by. The people that worked in him were Ghanaian, but I feel like the owners were not, but I'm not 100% sure, so I can't say. It was called Bloom Hospital in East Legon. It's on the Lagos Avenue Road if you want to check it out, but I'll put the details also in the description box if you want to check it out. But yeah, they handled him really, really well. I think they do lots of other things there as well. They look after the babies if they've had problems. I think they do respiratory problems. They do a range of stuff, different things in there. But they handled it really well. They received us really well. They were really welcoming. And I didn't have any fears about anything being able to go wrong or anything like that. They really did put us at ease, which was really good. And they had a really nice, in the waiting area, my other children got to wait in the waiting room. They had like toys and they had a TV. And so it was really nice and relaxed. In fact, when we went there was no one else in the clinic at the time. It was just my children just sitting there watching TV while my son was getting stitches done and stuff like that. So it went really well. So actually, that actually made me feel more comfortable, and I felt more reassured. Like actually, if something, God forbid, if something was to happen, it's not a huge, massive problem. There are places you can go to take care of these things. So I hope that has brought you guys a bit of comfort to know that if something was to happen while you're in Ghana, there are facilities now that are coming up that are top notch. And like I say, they were top notch, but they weren't that expensive because the stitches were only about 100 cedis to get them done, which is not earth shattering. I know it's expensive for some people, but it's not earth shattering. I'm not going to be thinking about it for the next 5 months. Oh my gosh, I spent 100 cedis on this. I just wanted the job done, and the job was done, and so I was really pleased with it. It's cut nice and clean. He does remember that he's had the stitches, definitely, because sometimes he looks and he says, Mom, 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 and he looks at it, and so he knows he's done it. but it doesn't really overly disturb him. Doesn't seem like traumatized by anything. But that's children for you, I guess. In general, they tend to bounce back a lot quicker. But if it was me, yeah, and that happened to me, my gosh, you guys would be hearing about it in every single video that I do. I'd be like, do you remember the time when? Do you remember the time when? Do you remember the time when? Because I'm like that. I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to cuts and bruises and all that stuff. It's just not my thing. But anyway, guys, I hope that has given you a little bit of information. You do not need to be worried about healthcare so much. There are things here that are now being put into place. The more that Ghana is developing, the more things that are coming. And the rain is also coming. Yeah. Anyway, guys, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell for me. And until next time, guys, I am out. Peace.